In this video, we are going to look at some key moments in the life of Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, the man who ordered an attack on America 9/11, the trauma of New York, and the man who once spread fear and terror in the Western world, the man who was known as the most dangerous terrorist by many and was haunted by USA for 10 years. Osama bin Muhammad bin Abd bin Laden was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in 10 March 1957. He was the 17th of 54 children fathered by Muhammad Awad bin Laden, who was a Yemeni immigrant who built a billion-dollar construction company in Saudi Arabia and had 22 wives. His mother was Hamida al-Attas from Syria. He was born to one of the richest families in Saudi Arabia. Osama means lion in Arabic. Through his childhood, Osama helps his father in his work and received training in explosive to blast out mountain for roadways. He was raised as a devout Sunni Muslim. His father died in 1968 in a plane crash, and bin Laden inherits between $30 to $80 million, which is held in trust until he is 21. Bin Laden graduates from King Abdul Aziz University in Jeddah with a degree in public administration and economics in 1979. An event occurs that affects him deeply. The Muslim world were shocked by the defeat of Palestine by the Israeli in the war. There were a huge population of Muslims in Palestine. Though he was just a young man, but another event occurs that turns him from idealistic student into a warrior and a terrorist. In 1979, there was a revolution in Afghanistan and the communist government came in power. Lots of people in Afghanistan wanted to follow the same culture that they were following. As there were a communist government, Soviet or Russian has a full support to them. So there was a fight in which Soviet and Afghani government were on one side, and on the other side there were people who wants an old rule and were against the government, who were known as Mujahideen. In December 24, 1979 in Afghanistan, Soviet or Russian tanks enters in Afghanistan on Christmas Eve. Osama bin Laden was very impressed by how the Afghan people fight back, especially the Mujahideen, the Islamic holy warriors. Osama bin Laden believes an attack on one Muslim is an attack on all Muslims. Osama bin Laden very much took that to his heart. He goes to Afghanistan to join the jihad or holy war against the Soviet Union or Russians. He had no military training or battle experience, but he does have one thing, that is money and wealth. He started to provide money funds for weapons and equipment to Afghan fighters, the Mujahideen. Osama bin Laden was a billionaire, but instead of living like a prince, he is there in Afghanistan. Bin Laden raises money for the Mujahideen fighting in Afghanistan and also provides them with logistic and humanitarian aid. He remains there for a decade, using construction equipment from his family business to help the Muslim guerrilla force build shelter, tunnels, and road through the rugged Afghan mountain, and at times taking part in battle and protect the fighters from Russian bombs. During these years, he also personally fought in battle against the Soviet Union around 1986. During this war, Osama bin Laden was supported by USA, and US were providing huge amount of funds and weapons to fight against Soviet Union. The United States and Saudi Arabia provided $40 billion worth of financial aid and weapons to almost 100,000 Mujahideen and Afghan Arabs from 40 Muslim countries through Pakistani's ISI. He realizes that the Afghan fighter needs more than money. It needs an organization. With thousands of Arab fighters from Egypt, Syria, and Jordan came in support of Mujahideen, Osama bin Laden starts to establish an order. His mystic grows in Muslim society as he was a son of extreme privilege but asks no special treatment, which adds to his charisma. This made him very respected by the people who were fighting along his side. Although he was a billionaire, he slept with them. He ate the food they ate. The Afghan warrior became very devoted to him and very loyal to him because of his action in support of their cause. He was treated as a hero in the war in the Middle East, which gave him as a reputation and a status in the Muslim militant world. Slowly, he developed a confidence to take his jihad to a whole new level. He gives his first speech against America, saying Americans take their money and give it to the Jews so that they can kill the Muslim in Palestine. In 1988, bin Laden forms an organization and named it Al-Qaeda, which in Arabic means the beast, and their mission was to destroy Western influence and defend Islam and to join other Muslims to join the jihad. He demands all his members wear a religious oath to him personally. He started to believe he was an Islamic Messiah. Around that time, in 1989, the Soviet Union withdraws from Afghanistan and gets humiliated. He was treated as a hero of jihad in Saudi Arabia. After his return to Saudi Arabia, bin Laden engaged in the opposition movement to the Saudi monarchy while working for his family business. The defeat of Soviet Union and their push out of Afghanistan was a huge moment for bin Laden, claiming credit for Afghan victory and believes this victory is a proof that God is on his side and considered this victory for the whole Islamic world. It showed that Arabs have the ability to defeat the superpower like Soviet Union or Russia. In August 7th, the Iraq invades Kuwait and Saudi Arabia border in the leadership of Saddam Hussein. Osama bin Laden returns back to his home country, that is Saudi Arabia. Osama bin Laden then sent a message to Saudi royal family offering his help to defeat Saddam Hussein. But this offer is rejected by Saudi Arabia as United States of America was aiding Saudi Arabia. Osama bin Laden was extremely offended by the government of Saudi Arabia, who invites Christian or America to defend Saudi Arabia. US troops arrive in Saudi Arabia in order to have a close base to eventually go after Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein's troops. Bin Laden became outraged at the US force presence near the Muslim holy sites of Mecca and Medina and in his home country. Bin Laden watches 300,000 male as well as female soldiers arrive in his country. They were building bases, drinking alcohol, and sunbathing. In his eyes, the US cannot be the salvation of Saudi Arabia. Bin Laden asks fellow Muslims to rise up against this outrage, and the Saudi Arabia government puts bin Laden under house arrest. In 1991, bin Laden is expelled from Saudi Arabia by its regime, considering him now a threat directly to royal family. Eventually, he and his follower relocate to Sudan, where there is Islamic government. Sudan was a bankrupt country that needed money, and Osama bin Laden was a walking bank. In Sudan, he built lots of major roads, employed lots of people, and he was very much welcome in Sudan. All this was simply a cover for bin Laden's real operation. He started to produce weapons of mass destruction. In that African nation, Al-Qaeda begins to evolve into a terror network. In February 26, 1993, a bomb explodes at World Trade Center in New York City, killing 6 and wounding hundreds. 6 Muslim radicals, who US officials suspect have links to bin Laden, were eventually convicted for the bombing. Bin Laden is later named along with many others as a co-conspirator in that case. In October 1993, 18 US servicemen, all of them part of humanitarian mission to Somalia, were killed in an ambush in Mogadishu. Bin Laden later says that some Arab Afghans were involved in the killing and called Americans paper tiger because they withdrew from Somalia shortly after the soldiers stayed. In 1994, the Saudi government officially strips bin Laden of his citizenship, freezing all the remaining assets he has in that country. His family disowns him as well. That same year, bin Laden is a target of assassination attempt. Afterward, he adds his personal security as well. In the following months, officials believe he funded and directed a series of attacks, including a failed attempt to kill Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak and a 1995 suicide bombing at the Egyptian embassy in Pakistan. Authorities now believe that this marked the early days of a growing alliance between bin Laden and other militant Islamic groups, including the Egyptian Islamic Jihad and its leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri. In 1996, Sudanese officials expelled bin Laden from their country. He moves with his children and 3 wives to Afghanistan, where he received support from the fundamentalist Taliban regime. Al-Qaeda's reputation now grows to a whole new level. In August 23, 1996, bin Laden declares a holy war against US forces. He signed and issued a declaration of jihad from Afghanistan titled Message from Osama bin Laden to his Muslim brother in the whole world and especially in the Arabian Peninsula. Declaration of jihad against the Americans occupying the land of 2 holy mosques, expel the heretics from the Arabian Peninsula. In 1997, in his first interview with Western media, bin Laden tells that the United States is unjust, criminal, and tyrannical. The US today, as a result of the arrogant atmosphere, has set up a double standard, calling whoever goes against its injustice a terrorist. He said in the interview that America wants to occupy their countries, steal their resources. If anyone refused to do so, USA called them as a terrorist. Drawn by the chance to fight back against American imperialism, thousands of Muslims from Kashmir, Pakistan, India, and the Soviet republics come flooding to his cause, and he trains his new recruit in bomb-making and terrorist tactics. In February 1998, he even said that to kill an American and the Allies, both civil and military, is an individual duty of every Muslim, who, until all American departs from the land of Islam, incapable of threatening any Muslims. Now, he began to use suicide bomb in his attack. For the first time in the history, it created an army of essentially smart bombs with human brains who can think and navigate. On August 7, 1998, in Kenya, a truck is driven to US Embassy. The suicide bombers killed 213 people, including 12 Americans, and wounding 4,600 people, especially Kenyan civilians. 4 minutes later, a second suicide bomb in the US Embassy in Tanzania explodes. 11 are killed, 84 injured. This is the first time bin Laden does what will become his signature, the multiple attack. Osama bin Laden became more and more furious and ruthless, especially focusing on Americans. In retaliation, American President Clinton fires 75 cruise missiles at Al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan. But these attacks only anger the Muslims all around the world and make bin Laden's image as an Islamic hero. In June 7, 1999, bin Laden appears for the first time on FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive list. On October 12, 2000, in Yemen, he targeted the US military. A small boat ride by suicide bombers rips a massive hole in the billion-dollar American destroyer, the USS Cole, in the port of Aden, killing 17 American sailors. 39 others were injured. He was taking an example of Vietnam, where there were 500,000 of American troops in Vietnam, but ended up being defeated. He knows that the America with very powerful military power can also be defeated. He wants to strike at the very heart of American values. He believes World Trade Center were the representation of what America was. It doesn't matter to him that there were civilians targeted, including some Muslims. The lead hijacker, Egyptian-born Muhammad Atta, is an aspiring jihadist living in Germany. Osama bin Laden selected him as he was fluent in English and his familiarity with the lives in the West countries. In all, 19 operations will carry out the suicide attack. Osama bin Laden made the suicide attack believe that they would be martyrs and heroes which would help Islam and it would help the whole Muslim world. He explains that all the planes hijacked in the United States must be crashed or explode at nearly the same time to maximize the psychological impact. On September 11, 2001, at 8:45 a.m. on clearly Tuesday morning, an American airline Boeing 767 loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel crashed into the North Tower or World Trade Center in New York City. The impact left a gaping, burning hole near the 80th floor of the 110-story skyscraper, instantly killing hundreds of people and trapping hundreds more in the higher floors. 18 minutes later, after the first plane hit, a second plane appeared out of the sky, turned sharply toward the World Trade Center and sliced into the South Tower near the 60th floor. The attack on the World Trade Center in New York, which killed almost 3,000 people, 4 US commercial aircraft are commanded in flight by 19 hijackers. 2 are flown into the World Trade Center in New York, another in the Pentagon just outside Washington, and the 4th, headed to an unknown target, crashes in the field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. More than 3,000 people are killed. The operation succeeded beyond his wildest dream. Now everyone around the world knows his name. America was deeply shocked. This had never happened in America before. Soon thereafter, the US government names bin Laden as a prime suspect, and Osama bin Laden becomes America's most wanted with a $25 million reward on his head, dead or alive. The hunt for the most evil terrorist begins. America invades Afghanistan and searches for bin Laden. Bin Laden disappeared from the world. Bin Laden knew he was being hunted from everywhere. To protect himself, he uses no electronic device and communicates only via trusted courier. He goes in isolation and no longer he is the leader of extreme terrorists. He was trapped inside his own prison. He no longer could go anywhere. For 10 years, the USA has been hunting the man responsible for the world's worst terrorist attack in its history. In 2010, as he continues to walk alone around his garden, a NSA security satellite watches a tall man pacing around an enclosed garden. The CIA think that they have found Osama bin Laden in their sight and they plan to get them. In April 2011, President Obama ordered a covert operation to kill or capture bin Laden. So, on May 1st, 2011 in Pakistan, the pre-dawn hours in the morning, 2 fully loaded stealth Black Hawk helicopters approached the garden compound on a mission directly approved by the President of USA. A team of allied US Navy blast their way in and Osama bin Laden is woken by the sound of an explosion. He then tells his wife not to turn on the light, which was his last word. Navy found Al-Qaeda leader in the upside bedroom with a pistol and an assault rifle nearby. During a 40-minute operation, bin Laden resists and is killed in a firefight, as were 1 woman and 3 other adult males, one of them believed to be an adult son of Al-Qaeda leader. Within 24 hours, the body of bin Laden is buried in the sea, so his body can never become a shrine and people cannot worship him. But even so, Islamic terrorism hasn't gone away. As one fanatic leader dies, another movement is born. The compound where Osama bin Laden was killed was located less than a mile from Pakistani military academy and less than 100-kilometer drive from the capital of Pakistan. Pakistani authorities were not alerted about the operation in advance, with US officials informing them and those from other countries only after the US forces were safely out of the Pakistani airspace. A US helicopter goes down in the operation, but no US troops were harmed. After killing bin Laden, the US forces fly off from the compound with his body. Within 24 hours, it is buried at sea in accordance with Islamic law, because no other country was willing or able to take his body for burial on the land. Osama bin Laden had 6 wives and had 20 to 26 children. Many of bin Laden's children fled to Iran after September 11 attack. Osama bin Laden and 9/11 changed the world forever. He became a religious fascist. He believed he was an Islamic Messiah. He was the first Islamic jihadist that had the finances as well as leadership capability. He goes from being one among many holy warriors into a cult-like figure in whose name his followers will terrorize the world. He had made a transition from a Saudi wealthy person into this horrible mass murderer that could care less about the death of innocent people. That's all for Osama bin Laden. Thank you.